policy will set the target. The monetary policy people, they have the dashboard in front of them, and say, okay, now what can we do to incentivize the creation of jobs, for example? Okay, can we reduce the interest rate? If we reduce the interest rate level, can more people go to the bank, but go to banks to borrow and create businesses? But we also have to have an eye on inflation. Now, inflation erodes everybody's money. What is inflation? If inflation was 10% today, it means that the 100,000 naira you kept in the bank in the beginning of the year is going to buy you 90,000 worth of goods at the end of the year. That's money off your pocket. So the CBN also have an idea about, look, let's manage inflation. But we cannot expect them, particularly, to now perform the fiscal policy function. Now that's where, in government, there's what they call silo mentality. So, of course, the CBN does its own thing. The Ministry of Finance does its own thing. The Ministry of Agri does their own thing. And everybody, but what we need to do is a scenario where they can see each other and appreciate each other more. However, that also has to do with political leadership on the top. When you mentioned fiscal policy, I wanted to ask you, what exactly is wrong about the fiscal policy? And I will tell you one or two of them. But in recent times, what we have seen is a scenario where most of our funds have been going to vanity projects. So either the governor is building a huge house for himself, and most times, when this money goes, it goes. So we have in Kaduna State $9 billion, Naira, used to be a befitting, they would say, house for the governor. In Ekiti State, $3 billion. In Bayelsa State, about $34 billion. In Akwa Ibom State, about $38 billion. And, so when this money, even the stadium that was built recently, you'd ask yourself, fantastic place, well built and all that stuff. But the barriers are low. When we complain that, are you sure that this is going to be a scalable project and something we would actually, what exactly do we need at this point in time? So they know, at least we can see something, we can see a stadium, so leave it like that.
Is it an investment?
But, what I want to say is this: when we go out there on the streets, we should look at the faces of our people, we should look at our environment. We would realize that what we need are still the basic things. The food we need to give to our people, the shelter, the environment. Our environment is not neat. I jogged around VI this morning and I could these places are places where properties are priced in millions of dollars. But you still have sewage issues, you still have people throwing things everywhere. So until we cannot forget that is the core thing we should focus on now. Food, shelter, clothing, environment, health, education. Now that our resources are going to be smaller coming in, we need to now devote those resources specifically to these areas. And that's where we can save ourselves. Yes.
When we were talking about the price of the Naira vis-a-vis the dollar, the people are going to have a rethink about importing stuff. The importer is still going to import. He's just going to load it onto the consumer. The consumer just has to pay more for the goods. Especially since we need to import almost everything.
Well, I was in, somewhere yesterday where he did this CIBN dinner yesterday, and the CBN governor spoke about a number of things, and he also spoke about, the price of, the fact that we import milk, and he said, look, what is the big deal about producing milk, pasteurizing it and all that? Until that yesterday, I didn't actually talk about milk, and the fact that most of it, even through WAMCO, a lot of that comes through the Netherlands.
Don't we have enough cows?
Don't we have enough cows? So see, I think that in that regard, the issue may have to do with what the Minister of Agri would call the chain. So now who is talking to those guys with the cows? A lot of the milk gets tapped every day. Manually, they don't use the uders or whatever they call it. There's this thing that plug to the uders and so on. But we don't use that, so we still use hands to do that. That's why you see a full of the nunu all over the place,
So
but what we need to do is to scale it up, to get that, to talk to those guys. Is anything going to waste? If anything is going to waste, how can we get it off them in an hygienic manner and process them? And I think that these are business opportunities for entrepreneurs to look into. But you see, at this point in time, when things are tough, one the key ingredient we need is a belief in our country, unity of this country, and of course, what you see, the problem with the Naira and the disparity between the official and the
Black
power
market.
of black market,
Yeah.
is really because people are expressing, a certain level of disunity about, look, we don't know where the country is going, so I'd rather buy dollar.
I'm glad
instead
you
of
mentioned
money in naira.
So now you're saying that people should now become entrepreneurial.
People should, of course, certainly.
Yes.
And we don't even have a choice.
They should
because
stop
a lot of people are going to
importing
lose their jobs anyway.
And
or
become
losing
entrepreneurs.
jobs.
But how do they start that business when the banks are not friendly with loans?
The banks are not
Interest rates
friendly.
are
Okay,
too
now
high.
let me say this, because you know that the
I mean, it's just a vicious cycle, isn't it?
part of what we are going to do from our own perspective as a private sector, analyst, private sector, entrepreneur, I'm also an entrepreneur, is the policies of CBN for now, is what it is, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't advocate to get some of those things changed. For example, we would be looking at a scenario where, yes, fine, the naira can actually oscillate and lose some value, you understand? But things like the NPR, the interest rate level, I want to believe that the CBN has increased that interest rate level on a temporary basis with a view, that's the Monetary Policy Committee,
Yeah.
To see what will happen with the revaluation or devaluation thing of the naira. Eventually, it will be good that if the naira actually loses value, the interest rate should also be tweaked to come down a bit so that people can go to the bank. What the CBN is also trying to do by increasing the interest rate is to see investment can come in, because when your interest rate level is high, it means that investors, especially the portfolio investors, would like to come into your country to benefit from that, and that if you actually have a bit of excess, you are more encouraged to take it to the bank to deposit, because you're getting a higher interest rate. Now, what needs to be done, though, is to find out whether the banks actually adjust their deposit rates in tandem with the direction of the central bank. That means that not only is more supervision required, but also moral suasion to get the banks to understand where we're going, even though the banks have taken a beating in recent time, I must say. But everybody needs to have hands on deck. What I think Nigerians are missing is this. Our problems are not going to be solved by CBN. They're not even going to be solved by the ministries or the politicians. It's going to be solved by ourselves. For example, now, let's see the issue of the 8% devaluation in the value of the naira. And do you know that in some instances, you devalue naira by 8%, and your transport fare from Ojodu to wherever goes up by 100%. So now the driver is not going to say, I used to collect 200 naira here, now I want to collect 216 naira, because no, you're going to move from 200 naira to 250 or to 300. Now look at the percentage of that. Now, if Nigerians don't stand up and speak up for themselves, my friend, why are you doing this? Okay, we are not paying you.
And
We have to find a way of doing that.
now,
They can hardly do that.
They should.
They can hardly do
We
that.
have to do that. And in terms of the importation you mentioned earlier on, the thing is that a lot of things are still going to be imported, but will they be